This is Inside Bay Area Politics.
For San Francisco resident John Dennis, it's not about the odds. The chairman of the city's Republican Party is challenging Nancy Pelosi for her congressional seat. He is a libertarian. He's been endorsed by Senator Rand Paul. When we sat down to talk about things ranging from Pelosi to impeachment, I found out just how strongly he feels about his long-shot campaign. All right, you have described the House impeachment vote as one of the biggest political blunders ever. Why do you say that?
Because for the Republic to continue, we have to have trust in one another. And we have to trust that we're not going to use our political persuasions to take down a president. And I feel like what the precedent that's been set is that every president, when they get elected, they're going to be looking over their shoulders about when they're going to get impeached. And it's very divisive.
To get elected to Congress, John, you would have to convince a lot of San Francisco Democrats, for starters, to cross over. So what are some of the key political positions you have that might convince some of them to do that?
I think San Franciscans are underrepresented in areas like foreign policy, for example. I'd like to see us end our foreign wars. I'd like to see us end our much of our foreign footprint. I think a lot of people would like to see troops come home. I think people here are very concerned about civil liberties, about their privacy, electronic privacy, about government agencies being able to eavesdrop on them. These are all issues where Nancy Pelosi, I'm sorry to say, is a failure. And I think there's an appetite for someone to represent those folks in San Francisco.
You mentioned foreign wars. President Trump has promised to get the U.S. out of foreign wars. I know, obviously, you support that. But it's been really slow. Why is that so hard to accomplish?
You know, big organizations are hard to turn around to begin with, but also there are a lot of vested interests who want to see, wars continue. This has been an ongoing problem with American foreign policy for over 100 years. So there are vested interests who want to see that happen. You'll notice when the president wanted to remove 50 troops, from Syria, everyone, ran around like their hair was on fire. So anyway, it's just going to take some time, but I think ultimately President Trump may go down as the person who maybe ends as many as 5 wars.
Let's go back to your local campaign or what you're doing locally, John, and you're very active on Twitter. One of your rallying cries is a recent incident at the Safeway, the Marina Safeway, where a homeless man used an aisle of the grocery store as his personal restroom. That resonated with you. Why?
Well, because I'm not new to politics, as you know. I mean, I ran for supervisor here in San Francisco last year, and I feel like San Franciscans are being underserved by their politicians who are afraid to take a firmer stance for the better of both the homeless in San Francisco and the people of San Francisco. I would like to see homelessness discouraged and people living on the sidewalks. And I think one way to do that is to arrest homeless for doing things that are illegal on the sidewalks, like going to the bathroom, like shooting up drugs, and even sleeping. And I know we had this recent Boise court case that makes that issue up in the air. But there are lots of things that homeless folks are doing on the sidewalks that we could discourage them from doing, and it would reduce our homeless population right away.
In that tweet, you effectively, in part anyway, blaming Nancy Pelosi specifically.
Yeah, because Nancy Pelosi gives works to get $45 million to San Francisco every year just for homeless from the federal government, and I think we should reward success. And San Francisco is not succeeding right now with its homeless population, so I would hold back that federal money until they actually showed that they were able to do something with it. We've always had a good following nationally, but we're using social media in a way, as you mentioned earlier, in a way that I couldn't have even imagined, 10 years ago. So we see a national following that's helping us drive. Our Twitter following has effectively become a newsroom editor for lots of news organizations, because we put items out there that they can't ignore, and so that's very, very helpful, and ultimately will force Nancy Pelosi to, instead of working on divisive issues like impeachment in Washington D.C., force her to turn around and look at what's going on in her district. You know, she lives in a lovely part of town, not far from where I live, and I can assure you the issues that normal San Franciscans face, having to step over homeless people, having to step over human waste, having to step over, you know, used hypodermic needles, she's not seeing that. We need to bring that to her attention and get her focus back in San Francisco, and if I can lend some help to doing that, that'll be a mission worth fighting.
You have run against Pelosi before,
Sure.
correct?
Sure.
Once or more than once?
Oh, more than once, actually, yeah. And so 2014, 2012, after the top two system started, people don't realize that they had two choices when they went to the ballot box, Nancy Pelosi and John Dennis.
So this is what, fourth?
Yeah, fourth time doing it, yes.
Time?
Yeah.
And, you know, some people would say, you know, the odds are clearly lopsided. You feel it's important to have a Republican voice. Why do you keep coming back?
It's critical to have a Republican voice. What we've seen from San Francisco and from California is that one-party rule is a disaster. It is. We have the most beautiful state and one of the most beautiful places in the world, and people are leaving. Why is that? It's all because we have hegemonic rule in Sacramento, because we have hegemonic rule in San Francisco. That has to change. This town needs a strong Republican voice. I hope to be that voice, and I think the town will rue the day when we don't have any Republican representation here.
How does your wife and your daughter and Augie, your dog, how do they
the owner of my house, Augie?
The owner of your home, how do they feel about these constant uphill political battles?
You know, my wife is from the Midwest and comes from a more red area of the country, so she likes that. And one of the reasons why I got involved in politics is I wanted to set an example for my daughter to keep fighting. To fight for the things you believe in. And I think that's had an impact on her. You know, she's a debater, and she fights for the things that she cares about, and that's very obviously important to me.
Yeah, I was going to say that means a great deal to you. Clearly, it's an emotional. It's an emotional
Look what you did
subject.
to me.
I didn't mean
Who
to
knew
make
this was going to happen today?
I didn't mean to make you cry.
Yeah.
But you feel very strongly
absolutely.
about that.
Listen, these are, you know, the goal of politics is for us to live together as well as we possibly can. That's, you know, why we get into the fight. I feel like I've got a position that's underrepresented here, and that I offer something that helps us, that can help us live better together. And so, yeah, so I mean, I hope I set an example for my family to fight for what you believe in.
How old is your daughter?
She's 13. Oh. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time, and come back. Come see us again.
If I come back again, I'm going to bring a box of tissues because you have this impact on me, apparently.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, actually, I appreciated all of that.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks.
John.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We've been inviting Speaker Pelosi to respond or to come talk to us anytime when she's home in the Bay Area.